shaka the bro. Hallelujah. My God. Hallelujah. My God. Shaka the bro.
Yeah, yo, yo, yo. Yeah, nguvu zenindala na ngula chilo. Oke boze tulive na kuya lelo devyo bayetu. Amita pendwa ya vintu ifisume vyoza kula kuibukisha. Anate pochimo Wimbo watemenu wakatongi Awazunga wajita katongi Nagula kuibukisha kateka Kaibuku muna kapona Nenseko siove pamenso Yangu ama umebaya Iyaba ume Iyaba ume
Kateka wawantu Twakulila, lelo twakulila Shika kukonke mili moshove
Ale filamba, fiena minta pengoshile Eti kume moku londolo la vale Lilo wingi,
Iseko wengi mwakwete Iseko wengi mwakwete Mwaya mwende wino tata wesu
Katusi muchi mutege Wali bomba kale Komba mwatu katuleli lake Mupanga chiba
Benda Upanga mwine Oya mwine Ine lalila
Lungu, ya mama Ala nacho mwabye Mama Bebele Bakataba Wabatunema mupanga mwine Mama Ya mama ume Oja bantu wala ya nonsipi Ya baba ume Ukuyo mutusieni bila mbamwe Mumenzo mwevo Ya yo bala ili ya baba ume Nangu tulalaba Onye tulibesila kifuemo Mingi tualaba badinotiwe Nangu tulalaba Uti tualaba badinotiwe Mama Nangu tulalaba Ukula bevyo wati dobwini Ibisebo wapangini obwini Ukuchinjo lusako kumoneko busaka Mama Utituala basiani Chagwa katuse
If it's a felt need of the family, for example, that the president should not personally be in attendance. So what do we, why not delegate? Why not delegate? Why not delegate? Yes, it's awkward, but unusual situations, unusual circumstances may demand unusual responses. And it will appear, the problem that we have as human beings is that we think they now would have lost, then they have won. But sometimes backing down and then allowing certain things to happen may not necessarily be a loss. It could be actually a sign that you are greater than the other because you are ready to, to back down and give way, and for the sake of the greater good of the country.
Must be an interesting one. I'm not sure if South Africa has ever done this before, but to ultimately help in the burial of a former president of an African country then, in which the family has decided not to repatriate the body back to Zambia. How exactly does South Africa deal with this from a diplomatic point of view, considering Minister Lamula's visit as well to Lusaka?
And that was precisely the purpose of Minister Lamula's visit to Lusaka. firstly share the country's condolences on the passing of President Lungu, and also to say that South Africa does acknowledge the importance of a nation burying their former president. However, at this stage, we are bound legally to follow what the family requires, and we would then have to leave it there with the family's obligations or the family's wishes. But this also comes on the back of us having legal obligations to honor the family's wishes as they are resident in South Africa. So that then comes with some attendant rights as well in terms of some various legislations that would apply in these processes. So that is where we stand on the matter. But it should not be seen in any way as us not wishing to respect the Zambian government's wishes or disrespectful to the Zambian nation as well.
All right, let's bring you some breaking news now. Just before we go, the Attorney General in Zambia has now filed papers. He is seeking to ensure that the late former President Edgar Lungu is not buried in South Africa.
An application which will be heard by a Zambian court tomorrow. In that application, the Attorney General argues that even if the late former President Edgar Lungu did not want to be buried back home or in an official funeral led by the government, they believe, this is the Zambian government, that ultimately the desires or the wishes of the people would supersede his personal wishes or those of his family. So breaking news tonight, an application being brought forward in Zambia to prevent the burial of former President Edgar Lungu in South Africa.
And as you take some of the statement there, it says the Attorney General is requesting that no burial take place until all disputes regarding Dr. Lungu's final resting place are resolved, specifically whether he should be interred in Zambia with full military honors, customs and traditions as mandated by Zambian law and in keeping with public interest.
He was supposed to have been flown back to Zambia last week. You'll recall our crew was actually out at the airport when ultimately at the 11th hour the SABC News team was told that there would be no repatriation of the body back to Zambia for burial. So this is the latest in the fallout between the Lungu family and the government of the country.
And of course, we'll continue to keep a close eye on it and bring you up to speed.
How can you allow somebody who has murdered your son or your daughter and you are still mourning to come and attend the funeral and we made to speak at the funeral?
But how good your son,
was. And you know about it, you say, wait a minute, what's happening? And I think I can just say the whole thing, I summed it up when I spoke to one guy. I said, because how can you, Ambassador, a Catholic, be remembered in a Jehovah's Witness hall in the 10th anniversary? Or how do you get
to be dishonored?
How do you get remembered in a SDA church when everyone knows that you're Catholic and so on? And the state insists.
Good morning to all and welcome to today's urgent update. We'll do an update this morning to just keep you abreast of what's happening. It's Wednesday, 25th June 2025. The mourners are already gathering at the King Cathedral in Johannesburg, in Berea, Hillbrow, Johannesburg. It's the largest cathedral in Gauteng, and they purposefully chose this, I think, so that they could accommodate as many people as possible. This case has already been attracted comments from all and sundry, but we give you verified information here. So what's the status? So far, the family has not received any process, any either demand letter or court process. But what is happening? What is happening is Zambia's Attorney General, Mulilo Kabesha, has sued Mama Esther Lungu as first respondent. Betha Lungu, Tasila Lungu, Daliso Lungu, Chieso Lungu, Charles Piri, Makebi Zulu, and Two Mountains. Now, Two Mountains is the undertaker, the morgue, the mortician that is handling the remains of the late president. Now, what's the purpose of the motion? Remember, ZNBC was saying, no, they've taken an injunction. UPND is saying there's an injunction. First of all, there's no court order whatsoever. There's no court injunction whatsoever. This is a notice of court, and this is what it reads. Take notice that the applicant, who's Mulilo Kabesha, intends to make an application to the Honorable Court, which is the Honorable Court, the High Court of South Africa, Gauteng Division, Pretoria. And he says, take notice that the applicant intends to make the application to the above Honorable Court at 8 hours on Wednesday, 25th June 2025. At this stage, it's an intention by the Attorney General. He has filed court process notifying that they have sued the following: Mama Esther Lungu, Betha Lungu, Tasila Lungu, Daliso Lungu, Chieso Lungu, Charles Piri, Makebi Zulu, family spokesperson, and Two Mountains, which is the undertaker in this process, which is handling the remains of the late president. So they are saying, take notice that the applicant, who is the Attorney General, is making an application to the above court, which is the Gauteng Court, Pretoria, at 8 hours on 25th June 2025. Or as soon, I want to call it, you call later. Thank you. So let me read it again, sorry. Take notice that the applicant intends to make an application to the above Honorable Court at 8 hours on 25th June 2025, Wednesday, or as soon thereafter as counsel for the applicant may be heard for an order in the following terms. So they are praying to the court, and because they're obliged to give notice, so they've given notice. They're supposed to give notice to the family, to the 8 that have been listed, to the 6 that have been listed, the 8. So the 6 family members, the spokesperson, Honorable Makebi Zulu, and Two Mountains, which is the 8th respondent and the custodian of the remains of the late president at the moment. No order has been given. No court interdict has been obtained. They'll try to peddle this propaganda. So what is happening now is that their lawyer, Attorney General, remember, Attorney General of Zambia can't appear in any court in South Africa. So they've hired a lawyer who got to court and who has notified the parties, although we have not received court process, that they intend to make this application for an interdict. So what is happening currently is that the mourners are gathering at the Christ the King Cathedral in Johannesburg, and the process for Requiem Mass that should be superintended by the Archbishop of the Metropolitan of Lusaka Archdiocese will is the main celebrant of that process. The process as program release is supposed to start at 10 hours. So make your way to the cathedral. We'll be there, we'll be live, we'll be communicating to you live. The issue of lawyers and the issue of Pretoria Court, leave it to the lawyers. The lawyers will attend to that. For you, get to the cathedral. Let's meet at the cathedral. All updates will be given from the cathedral. As far as the family is concerned, the program is underway and the program will proceed. If there is any development from court, you'll be informed from the cathedral. So what's the place and where are you supposed to be for those that have traveled by air, by road, by whatever means? There's a large contingent of people that jumped on buses and have traveled by road to South Africa. And most of them arrived last night, some very early in the morning. And then we have those that flew, especially the many leaders from across the political parties that have traveled. And let's all gather at the cathedral. Let's sit in church. Let us be peaceful in church, and you'll be informed from church if there is any other development. But as far as we are concerned, the church service should be underway as planned. This is for the remains of the late President Dr. Edgar Chagwa Lungu. And I may invite some comments in case you want clarification. We want to give you unbiased, unfiltered information, devoid of propaganda. Whether the facts are called pleasing or not pleasing, we'll give it to you as it is. So as it is now, there's no court order, there's no court injunction. There's an intention to sue the 8 members of the parties, 6 family members, the family spokesperson, and the mortician. A notice has been given, and the lawyer is saying, if I am lucky, I might be heard. And he said he must be at court at 8 hours. We will be ready for him, because who has more authority on the remains and this determination? In their court case, the Attorney General is citing the case of Kaweche Kaunda. And just listen to what Kaweche issued a public statement yesterday. And Kaweche is very clear. I'll give you that statement. But all newspapers in Zambia are leading with this matter. The action by the state, that is Kaweche's position. That's the authority they are using. Kaweche says Lungu's body belongs to the family. Kaweche Kaunda, he moved the High Court. He tried to stop the process. He wanted his father to lie next to Mama Betty, but the family broke. So the elder brother, Panji Kaunda, said, as the eldest son, I'm giving the state authority to proceed with the burial. That is how the PF government proceeded, using the authority of Panji Kaunda. However, even when the judgment came for Kaweche, first it came far later, they denied him an injunction, and even when the ruling came, it was wishy-washy. It just tells us that, look, there is devoid of legal backing in our country. We need to devise a new law that should guide how we put to rest our heroes, our presidents, former presidents, and other heroes. We need a law that should explicitly protect the family, also protect the state in these decisions. At the moment, there is no such law. They are just seculars. They are just small things here and there, but essentially there is nothing.
We lived next door to each other. When he passed on early morning of that day, I was one of the few people to be at the house, because I was the next door neighbor. I just walked in there. And one of the early conversations was, we need to inform the head of state, president at the time. It wasn't my duty, but it was my responsibility to say so to those who were close. And they did that as a family. And the president announced the date. In our case, my colleague was in the hands of the family, medication issues around. I knew he had passed on very early in the morning of the 5th of June. I decided to say nothing until we consulted the family. And I reached out to the Secretary of the Cabinet, my team around. I said, I cannot announce the death before the family is engaged. Family refused to engage us, subject for another conversation. While we were still struggling to do that, the family made a public announcement. And once they made a public announcement, that's the time I said, that's confirmation. It shouldn't have been like that, but it's like that. And the same day, the president issued a statement. I didn't take 48 hours, as people are saying. The record is there. Why am I saying this to you? I think it's important as citizens for you to be aware of this information, because I scan what's going on social media, a lot of stuff there. So that's the circumstance that we find ourselves in, but the point is that that's our desire to bury him here. I know amongst yourselves there's probably polarization of views, but really, he was not an ordinary citizen. He was president. He's the only president who lived after leaving office and went to his Lord with his immunity intact. Those who lived before him, after the presidency, they all had their immunities tampered with. President Kaunda, President Chiluba, President Banda. So this fellow talking took the decision that we must end this kind of stuff. So again, contrary to what is being said in the public media, facts are there staring at us. Whether we bend them or not, they are there. But let's honor him by burying him here. The issue of what issues surrounded, I think it's a discussion after the burial. We are trying very hard on your behalf, but if we don't manage, it's because of not trying. Ultimately, it will be an issue beyond our control. I took this reasoning myself to explain this to you as citizens.
Abantu tata bakainde ushateti mwamfila ko munenulu se nanguline batile pumbu afuilile pali yakwe indeke shilisha yakwe apotea ikulile fyo mwine teti mwamfila ko luse mwalekaya kuchipatala ye mwelesa bukali bwashani ubu mwelesa twasukeni mtu asuke mwelesa wesu mtu asuke pali balungu nachipina tulile chelo chonse okufira okulalala mwelese wakaende mwalufyenyeni mwatulelilila nimwatulelilila tata imwe mwaipaye balungu babulumbulandu wakateka wesumayo alensele shalile pwile omutima tekanse balungu balwele ninsele shalile puwa omutima balile puwa omutima wa balungu nseyo kutukwa emyaka fo ale tukwafye wabula okulanda lokunatala tondolo naikumbata ale emyumvu ebyegwa muletukana bamisewa yakulile mama yapoti yakulile bandege ashitile ibipatala akulile amasukulu akulile mwamupaka amuti twayingisha banchito kulenya ene wanachavipa chakalipa shalanda paine shaisa papa mulawasa paine ntamba kofine lero chakalipa akaindesha mwachita mishalo sha Zambia nichishe.
The Attorney General has 4 conditions he's seeking before the Gauteng court. He wants this application to be heard as urgently as possible because, I think they are fearing lapse of time and the church service might proceed. Number 2, he wants the court to order that the undertaker who's keeping the remains of the late president should not be allowed to move the body. That is another request they're making, and they want the court to give an order to that effect. And they want access to the body, and that the 1st to the 7th respondents should also be permitted, but under the conditions that either the court or the undertaker should provide. They are also seeking that the order should operate as just a minute. That they are also seeking that the remains of the late president, if granted, should be repatriated to Zambia. And they are hoping that the application, that they will file up to, and they be given almost, I think, a month, that this process, they be given 22 July to file the main case to argue why, but at the moment they are looking for these interim orders from court, and then they are saying we can then file properly up to July 25. So what does this all mean? What this means is that the Attorney General of the Republic of Zambia has gone to court, has hired a local lawyer because he's not allowed to appear before court, and is seeking to prevent the funeral and burial of the late president. He is citing what he's calling public interest, and that the late president is entitled to military honors, and that it's been the culture and traditions of the last 5 presidents they were put to rest in this manner. And he is arguing that the state have override over the family. And they are citing the case of Kaweche, and as I showed Kaweche's position. But what's the position of South Africa? What is the position of South Africa? I'll read you the authority and similar case of what has happened in South Africa. First, let's hear from DECO, which is Ministry of Foreign Affairs. It's called DECO, Department of International Relations and Cooperation. This is what they said. We've been playing this piece, but I'll read you a case study after this.
Must be an interesting one. I'm not sure if South Africa has ever done this before, but to ultimately help in the burial of a former president of an African country then, in which the family has decided not to repatriate the body back to Zambia. How exactly does South Africa deal with this from a diplomatic point of view, considering Minister Lamula's visit as well to Lusaka?
And that was precisely the purpose of Minister Lamula's visit to Lusaka, to firstly share the country's condolences on the passing of President Lungu, and also to say that South Africa does acknowledge the importance of a nation burying their former president. However, at this stage, we are bound legally to follow what the family requires, and we would then have to leave it there with the family's obligations or the family's wishes. But this also comes on the back of us having legal obligations to honor the family's wishes, as they are residents in South Africa. So that then comes with some attendant rights as well, in terms of some various legislations that would apply in these processes. So that is where we stand on the matter. But it should not be seen in any way as us not wishing to respect the Zambian government's wishes or disrespectful to the Zambian nation as well.
South Africa is very clear. They are obliged to honor their own law. What is their own law? Their own law is very clear. They respect family and family wishes. Is Mama Esther Lungu family? She is. Are the 5 children that have been sued members of the Lungu family? They are. And South Africa is obliged to respect the wishes of the family. And that's what they've communicated to the Zambian government. President Cyril Ramaphosa even bothered to send the full Minister of International Relations and Cooperation, Ronald Lamola, to Zambia to explain this situation to the president. Despite being told what the law says in Zambia, President Hakainde has launched a court action suing the family, trying to get the body and repatriate it to Zambia in the name of public interest and in the name of military honors. The family has insisted the remains of the late president will be buried in Zambia, now or in future. Currently, it's not possible to put the remains of the late president in Zambia for the various reasons they've cited. And, me and my viewers here have coined it, so these are words we are borrowing from President Edgar Lungu commenting about a similar matter. So when South Africa says it is a law precedent, when South Africa is saying we ought to respect the wishes, what do they mean? Let me cite you one case of an Angolan army general, celebrated hero in Angola. And his family, for whatever reasons, whatever this political friction occurs, decided that it was not safe for them to take the remains of the late army general back to Angola. So the Angolan government went to court in the manner President Hakainde Hichilema has gone to court. And the case is The family of General Quito, he was popularly known as General Quito. You can read about it. His full names was Mendes de Carvalho, General Mendes de Carvalho, but was popularly known as General Quito. So the Angolan government objected to the family that he should be buried in South Africa. The Angolan government wanted General Quito's remains to be repatriated for burial in Angola because he was a celebrated hero. He was an army general in the Angolan government and had participated in the liberation of Angola. But this was the South African High Court's ruling. The court ruled in favor of the family, reasserting and asserting the family's right to bury General Quito in South Africa, despite the Angolans' strong objections and plea that the remains of the late general must be repatriated to Angola. This case demonstrates, first of all, the independence of the South African judiciary and its willingness to protect individual and family rights, even when those rights are contested by a foreign government where those citizens come from. It also showcased the court's consideration for the deceased wishes and his family's right to choose a place of burial. It is up to the family to make those decisions. So when the South African authority are telling President Hakainde Hichilema, president, he kept on saying, bring the body, repatriate the body. He's our former president. But Cyril Ramaphosa sent a special envoy to the president with one clear message. Mr. President, we understand. All of us, including the family, wants the late president to be buried in Zambia. But however, the family have proceeded to request that the late president be buried in Zambia. We cannot go against those family rights. We have a moral and legal duty to honor the wishes of the family. President Cyril Ramaphosa proceeded to send a special envoy. Awe niwankoma matui lelo bali ku court, bali ku Pretoria Gauteng court, bachitibale for remains yaba President Edgar Lungu.
Must be an interesting one. I'm not sure if South Africa has ever done this before, but to ultimately help in the burial of a former president of an African country then, in which the family has decided not to repatriate the body back to Zambia. How exactly does South Africa deal with this from a diplomatic point of view, considering Minister Lamula's visit as well to Lusaka?
And that was precisely the purpose of Minister Lamula's visit to Lusaka, to firstly share the country's condolences on the passing of President Lungu, and also to say that South Africa does acknowledge the importance of a nation burying their former president. However, at this stage, we are bound legally to follow what the family requires, and we would then have to leave it there with the family's obligations or the family's wishes. But this also comes on the back of us having legal obligations to honor the family's wishes as they are resident in South Africa. So that then comes with some attendant rights as well in terms of some various legislations that would apply in these processes. So that is where we stand on the matter. But it should not be seen in any way as us not wishing to respect the Zambian government's wishes or disrespectful to the Zambian.
I am cultured different. I don't want people confronting me like this, because where I grew up, we fear nothing. When you confront me, you're creating a problem then.
Last send-off of their former statesman. What does this do in stripping a nation of having that opportunity of burying their former statesman?
Kato, I still say President Hakainde lost an opportunity to be the bigger man. He should have just stood aside.
lotulo yaya mukula lotulo wemuchiri mushawamashani alawabinabeki napashipatalala iwe wabinabeki napashipatalala Wasala kusia seo tulila Adada mulale muchibote Mengi maya Ichichena chakalipa Wakulekela we mwine Ututule we fumu Mengi watusha Ichichena chafinisha Wakulekela we mwine Ututule we wakulekela we mwine ichichena chafina wena chakulisha tutule wakulekela we mwine
umumwakwenda na umfwina kasemo abati umopalipwe anakila kumushini umwejilinga wenkondo halume ya chalo aponye mfuti yake aya wenda mutende wenda wayimikina tukesa umana
mengi maya ichichena chakalika wakulekela we mwine ututule we fumu wengi watusha ichichena chafinisha wakulekela we mwine ututule we tutule we futule we wakulekela we mwine ichichena chafina wena chakulisha tutule wakulekela we mwine mengi maya ichichena chakalika wakulekela we mwine tutule we ichichena chafinisha wakulekela we mwine ulewe.
Yesterday, June 18th, the people of Zambia were prepared to receive the remains of our former president, but were surprised by the family's reversal of the agreed course of action. At our request, the South African government prepared extensively with military honors mounted by the South African Defense Force, who did so in vain, as the former president's body was not availed by the family for repatriation to Zambia. For this unfortunate situation, we extend our sincere apologies to President Ramaphosa, the government, and the people of South Africa. Fellow citizens, our country cannot afford a state of indefinite mourning. We've done everything possible to engage the family of our departed sixth Republican president, and we've reached a point where a clear decision has to be made. Given these circumstances, I therefore wish to inform the nation that as of the end of today, the 19th of June 2025, this particular national mourning period is officially over. This will allow the country to begin to return to some normalcy.
That was on 19th June, Thursday last week. The president said, look, I've tried everything and I've abandoned this process. He cancelled the period of national mourning. Remember, the period of national mourning should have gone up to 23rd June, Monday, the other day. But he cancelled it last Thursday, and he says the country should return to normal. And he began even the process, especially of the constitution, which they're expected to table this week. but I think it will not be tabled because literally all the Patriotic Front MPs and others are in Johannesburg to attend to the funeral and burial of the late president. The UPND have been running. Remember, they are running with their usual insults from day one. In fact, they've exacerbated this crisis. If there is any other factor to the crisis that we have, it is the factor by the praise singers and President Hakainde Hichilema's own media infrastructure, because they've been running parallel insults, parallel defamatory articles, literally demeaning the late president and his family, and scandalizing the entire mourning period. You know, that he has hired planes from Walden Findlay, they've put on Mr. James Ndambo, they are scandalizing. And from 3 days ago, when it became very clear that the family had decided to, meanwhile, put to rest President Edgar Lungu in South Africa, they began with a song that President Edgar Lungu is not dead. How insensitive. Do you think President Cyril Ramaphosa would extend his wishes, would send emissaries to the family, would send a minister to the family, and would constantly call if President Edgar Lungu has not died? Do you think the hospitals in South Africa can declare someone dead who is not dead? Do you think that President Hakainde Hichilema himself, who has confessed that he heard about this death of the late president early in the morning, the family has put it to 6. He seemed actually to have heard even earlier than the family. But this is a mockery the family has been subjected to during this entire period. Very insensitive. Now they are running with because you see how they do it. They will do it on Causeway, then they will use Simon Mwaleni. They will use Simon Mwaleni that there's no body viewing. Who says there's no body viewing? Can you guys show Simon Mwewa family programs, burial programs, show him church programs, send to him as many as possible. It's not always that you'd list. You just usually do a broad program. You don't list everything. Now they'll stand, now the choir will stand, now the choir will sit down, now baladi omkate. Now, no. You just do church service from this to this. Why should the body viewing be listed on the program? Is that necessary? So if it's not listed, you want to run with the defamatory articles you've been running that the president is not dead. So how did our president, President Hakainde Hichilema, hear about the death of the president early hours of that morning on 5th June if he's not dead? Some propaganda is so shallow, but it's so insensitive during this period. And the family cannot be responding to those things. You've seen how grief-stricken the widow is. I can see many people are saying, Ambassador, don't play that video, it's making us break down. Yeah, maybe when the reality hits you, maybe you'll be more sensitive. This is not a play matter. Now you are suing the family. First, you used to sue again and again Edgar Chagwa. Just look at his eligibility case. How many cases did the UPND and State House launch? So many cases. Even in death, you remain insensitive. You are still suing President Edgar Lungu. Here are some of the presidents that were buried outside the country. Mobutu Sese Seko. Remember, he was ousted, I think, in 1994, and the environment remained hostile for him. He was living in Morocco. Morocco offered him sanctuary, and he was battling cancer, and he died in Morocco, and he was buried in Morocco. Hisse Habri, who died in 1990, he was buried in Senegal. Amadou Hahij of Cameroon, who died in 1982, he was buried in Senegal. Because there is this habit in Africa where the successor has to harass, literally to death, their predecessor. They have to lump them with corruption, even when they are more corrupt. They have to accuse them of corruption, even when they're engaged. They have to accuse them of human rights abuses, even when they're engaged in worse human rights abuses. It's not safe for a former president in Africa. And that's why they said term limits should stop these, presidents from maybe overstaying. But it should be incumbent upon the new president to take care of the predecessor. Otherwise, people will begin to want third term. Here he is, Hichilema. He's trying to amend the constitution. For what ends? For what ends? To entrench himself. He's already afraid of what lies ahead of him. Why should it be like that? Idi Amin died in 2003. He died in Saudi Arabia. Kwame Nkrumah, remember, the hero of Africa. First independent state, second independent state, because Sudan got independence in 1956. Ghana got independence in 1987. But there's a narrative that has gone that Ghana was the first independent state. It was actually Sudan. But the hero he was, and he was trying to bring Africa together, promoting the United States of Africa. A coup, was undertaken. He ruled between 1957 and 1962, and in 1972 he died in Romania that had offered him sanctuary, and he was buried in Guinea. Sekou Touré offered sanctuary because they couldn't take the remains. The period remained hostile, and Kwame Nkrumah's death, and burial in Equatorial Guinea now became a point of politics, including coups. Everyone was saying we'll bring back the remains of the late president. So finally the remains were exhumed and later buried in Ghana, and there's a mausoleum, respectful mausoleum for Kwame Nkrumah, and there's been a full restoration. Remember, they got him after the coup, banned all his books and tried to diminish him away from legacy and tried to diminish his entire legacy, but he's been fully restored, and Africa has never forgotten. The case of Robert Mugabe, who the family wanted to lie at the Hero Square, and the family insisted, no, he will lie in the village. The case of Nelson Mandela, the family put his foot down. No, he will not lie in Johannesburg. Everyone was saying, look, this is a hero. He's Africa's hero, and it's a tourist attraction. Just go when you go to Santo. Now many people take pictures. There's a queue just over a statue. What about the burial? So the South African government wanted Nelson Mandela buried in, at least in Johannesburg. The family said no. In Kunu, Eastern Cape, very fight. You have to take a long flight, I think, into East London, then you go to... It's very far, but the family's wishes were respected. In the case of President Edgar Lungu, the family has been very clear. We wish to bury in Zambia, but the environment is not safe. Look at this. They harassed President Edgar Lungu for 3 years, denied him access to medical treatment. He literally sneaked out. Even when he dies, the president only announced 7 days later. You saw in the program, he says we announced, and they are circulating Facebook posting. You and I who are on Facebook, I'll be asleep here, my Facebook page will be active. And many will be saying, Vamwambata Valala. No, they are what we call administrators. Administrators can run your page. Mr. President, you have administrators who run your page. And we know the number of administrators who run your page. You didn't say anything. Of course, your administrators posted a message. The country expected you to address the nation. You didn't until 7 days later. Your government only made an official statement 4 days later on Sunday when they announced that you, Mr. President, had declared a period of national mourning for 7 days, which was one of the first issues you broke with the family. The family agreed with your representatives that the period of national mourning will be declared at least on Wednesday when the remains arrive in Zambia. But you declared it on Sunday. I don't know if it was to create pressure, if it was to ensure that the body returns to Zambia, but that was the first broken promise your government made. Before you had the widow in the country, before you had the remains of the late president in the country, you proceeded to declare a period of national mourning. And after agreement, you extended your period of national mourning. And again, it is you who came to cancel the period of national mourning, which was supposed to go up to 23rd June. You cancelled it on June 19th. Another matter, you even dug the grave without representative of the family, without knowledge of the family, before the body was even in the country. You dug this grave. You dug this grave. And now you have pressure. What do we do with this empty grave? And now you are pushing that the remains should be put in this open grave. It's not decent to do that. It is not decent to do that. If you create an environment, people will oblige. If you think you can use muscle and power every time, it doesn't. Bane, I'll open phone lines just for those that wish to comment on this matter, and then we'll close, and then we will go to the cathedral when our colleagues, our media team is ready. Okay, you can call now, and the phone lines are open. Let's hear from you if you wish to make any remarks. Sorry, I missed a lot of calls. I didn't check, but please, you can make your phone call and contribute to this discussion. Just hold on, let me put you online. You want to comment? Thank you very much. Please kindly make your contributions. Introduce yourself. You know the rules by now.
I know the rules, but I still introduce Mkwai.
It's part of the rules. You are allowed to be anonymous.
Mkwai. Obviously, it's a super sana kanchi chinchi. Awe na papa.
Yes.
Shiriro national mourning bali kansa. Umuntu tabamu temene mumwewo irafa rukitaba jawo numba tushiki. Ushe zama kateka ngatunafina bana ndiri. Ushe bupuga nango muri no bulushi. Awu numba na chafya. Let the wishes of the family prevail. I'm sure the family from onset, they made their wishes, they made their demands. They compromised on some demands. So was the government supposed to compromise. But after abrogating the earlier agreement, after cancelling the period of national mourning, and after saying the doors of dialogue are still open, instead of you going the way of the dialogue that you talked about, you now bulldoze your way through the courts of law in a foreign country. It's a very bad picture that we're painting for our nation. Nina chimpa kuma pe yesterday nishina mwene area shipamwero kweba nomba watu wala nomulandi ku court a whole country has sued the family of the former president. Ukubikira posoti pachironda ba widow abana abalero shumu fyashufuire okumatero na court. On the other end, this is the hypocrisy we're talking about. On the other end of the coin, you are saying, no, there should be dialogue, there should be healing, there should be peace. How can there be dialogue when you are adding on the animosity, the acrimony, by taking a step of going through the courts of law? If the family has chosen that they want to bury the president in South Africa privately. Let them do so, because there's no outright law in our constitution that stipulates that a former head of state has to be buried the way they want them to be buried. What we have are, procedures that we follow to say, okay, Kateka ngafwa, or former head of state ngafwa, but there is no place in the constitution where it is enshrined that it is a must that they should do this. And if they are saying they're doing this in public interest, whose public interest?
Thank you, my brother. The line is already congested. Thank you very much. Thank you for your comments. Good morning and welcome to today's program. Kindly introduce yourself and make your contribution.
Thank you so much, Mwamba. Good morning.
Good morning.
It's Patrick Chilufya from the UK.
Thank you.
And Mwamba, it's so sad that some of us who live in the UK can openly give our names out.
Yeah.
But our friends in Zambia, they are gagged, they are scared. Can you believe it?
They are. That's an atmosphere.
Living in a country called Mulibasha, Muchalo. You can't even mention your name. No. But Mwamba, I was just reading at the application, Yaba Attorney General, which doesn't make sense and which won't succeed. South Africa is a country that protects the rights of the vulnerable. Not unlike Zambia, which protects the rights of the elite and the politically connected. So I was just reading the attorney application.
MQI.
So the paragraph says, he further argues that in the event, if he further argued, he was talking about, I think he was talking about Lungu saying it should be buried in South Africa or something like that. But he says he further argues that in the event it were true, a point it denies that the late president wished not to have the state funeral. Such personal issues must yield to the greater public interest.
Yes.
I'm more interested in the greater public interest.
Which is public interest in this case.
For Lungu's hypocrisy, for Lungu's funeral, it has to yield with greater public interest. What about the Bill 7, which has been rejected by the entire public? The change, as we are talking today, the Law Association and Chapter 1 are having a conference today, a discussion today. Everybody has rejected it. Is that not public interest? But he will still go ahead and do it. So does public interest in Zambia applies only when it suits the state? Thank you, Mama.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Good morning and welcome to today's program. Please introduce yourself and make your contributions.
Good morning, Ambassador Mwamba. Speaking to Banda from Zambia.
Mr. Banda, make your contribution, sir.
First of all, I'm a youth and a young man of this country. And my contribution is that us as young people, we are okay with the family. I think we will support the wishes of the family. Because first of all, we feel the family had, they set up, I think it was open, the families were open enough even to engage with the government and came up with rules of engagements with the government. But I feel the government, they breached themselves. And we feel here in Zambia, there is no difference because the government already told us to say, you follow the proceedings on TV. And even if the proceeding is done in South Africa, we'll still follow on TV. And even if the proceeding was done in Zambia, we should have followed on TV. So we are supporting the wishes of the family and we'll continue and we'll advocate for the family that they're doing the right thing. And they shouldn't be scared because they have the backing of the young people.
Thank you, Mr. Banda. Yes, Mr. Banda, wind up your views quickly.
So whatever the government is they are trying to do, this man, they never regarded ECL as a statesman. First of all, they grabbed all his benefits to the point where he couldn't even travel. He left South Africa like someone who is as if he's a foreigner. Those people who are not following the rules of immigration. That's how he left the country. And today they want to accord him that thing. No, we won't trust them, and we won't let this country to be ruled in that pattern. I feel this is the time now that we need to transform. This country needs healing, and we are glad that ECO, our sixth Republican president, will rest in peace in South Africa. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Good morning, and please make your contributions. Hello, please introduce yourself and make your contributions.
Oh, my name is Johnny Mutalen.
Mkwaiwa mtale mulishani na walande po mkwaiwa.
Ala awe nendifyo wa mtende bakalamba. Nala womfya wedia womfishe bachiruba. Bachiruba ndebusha balishirepo kunchelenge ukashikishikule kulwapula. Balishire womfya wedia kwe batika poli ni kapoli kuchumwa Musambika muleka kirini awekera mumatipa geni ayafurukuta. So bakasongoni bakapolita bomfefilelanda abantu. One, adeni two. Inefo nsangire ni bapole pole. Lulimbo lwa imbira napya huko. I think na wakwata mission yako ati kulifu abasende kuli walungu. Badita vya chitikeresa wamaka. Abo ni bapole pole. Eshi na ine nabika po ni bapole pole. Akwati napya huko kanji lirumba lile wochi. I think limbira bena kulifire pya kunganda.
Thank you, Wane. Make your contributions. The line is open. Let's hear your views. The Attorney General is citing public interest. You, members of the public, let's hear your views. Good evening. Please tell us your name and where you are calling us from.
I prefer to remain anonymous.
That is allowed on this platform.
Thank you. Actually, I'm calling you from the US.
Just,
you know, if it's so saddening, because there's no way. A few days ago, Bakateka Okovala and say, no, national mourning we've cut, let the family be, let them decide. They are not say, no, it's Tumbi, but Attorney General. And you know, as Zambians, this is the time to pray actually. Lungu has fought his fight. It's up to us. In a video much playing do you know, if we're not careful, we end up being cast as Zambians? Because there is no way, it's not fair, and it is wrong. When ECL was alive, that man didn't like him. He never supported ECL. Today, why are you trying to honor someone who's dead? Why are we honoring someone who's dead?
Thank you, my dear sister. Anything more?
No, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Last send-off of their former statesman. What does this do in stripping a nation of having that opportunity of burying their former statesman?
Kato, I still say President Hakainde lost an opportunity to be the bigger man.
Just hold on.
He should have just stood aside.
Good evening. Please tell us your name and where you are calling us from.
I'm Apostle Moses. I'm calling from Livingston.
Apostle, make your contribution.
Yes, actually, I want to second the other caller who was saying that the government, the public is against Bill 7, but they have not
they have not, instead of cancelling that Bill 7, they have insisted to go ahead with it. Instead, this the Lungu funeral, we all support the family. They were supposed to allow the family to go ahead and bury instead of interfering, because there is no law in the constitution which allows the state to interfere in that funeral. Therefore, it's disrespectful to the dead for the Attorney General to issue an injunction or a summon to stop the burial today. They should have allowed the man to be put to rest. Then at an opportune time, when it's convenient, we can still repatriate the body by exhuming the body and repatriating it once the matter has been settled. They still have a chance to settle with the family in future. If at all UPND government continues up to 2026, they have a chance for the body to be repatriated, but they have to make amends with the family. UPND, I mean, especially the president, has to make amends. He has to speak to the family as a father and possibly apologize, reconcile with the family. That's what he was supposed to do. He has to be a bigger man. This is very immature for a leader to be going out of his way, like interfering with a burial procession. It's below democracy and below leadership principles.
Thank you, my brother. Thank you, my brother. There are so many calls. Let's allow other calls. Thank you very much for your contribution.
All right.
Hello, good morning, and please tell us your name and where you are calling us from.
My name is Jonas Mumba, calling from Kitwe.
Mr. Jonas Mumba, please make your contribution.
All right. It's very shocking to see that government is forcing themselves to, number one, I would say, the president, when he was inaugurated as a president, he used his private vehicle to take the instrument of powers. He didn't use the state's vehicle. Right now, he's staying in his own house, and yet he's a statesman. So what is so difficult to allow the family to bury our beloved 6th Republican president privately? I don't understand this. And according to my own understanding, the state does not own any human being. Every human being, whether he served in the government, even you, Mr. Mamba, you belong to the family that you came from. I personally, who's speaking, I had a uncle who served in the government, Mr. Rayford Mburu. He was a high commissioner to Ghana, and he was a deputy labor minister. He died in Ghana, and then he was repatriated back to Zambia. Our grandfather from Luapula demanded that he could be buried in Luapula. Whilst there was preparation that we bury him at Nkana Cemetery, we followed the demand of our grandfather, the father to the late Mr. Rayford Mburu, and we buried in Luapula. There was no conflict whatsoever. So let our president rest in South Africa. There is no problem. And we'll be at peace like that. Because there is something something beyond what we can understand. Thank you, Mr. Mamba.
Yeah, thank you very much. Let me just do an update. A large audience has joined us. Thank you very much. You can cut your line. A large audience has joined us since then. Sorry, let me just... So the Attorney General of the Republic of Zambia has gone to court with intention. This is what the notice says, the legal notice that was given to 8 members of the party called respondents. The Attorney General is the applicant. It says, take notice that the applicant, who is the Attorney General, intends, that's a key word, intends to make an application to the above honorable court, which is the Gauteng court in Pretoria, at 8 hours on 25th June, or as soon thereafter, on counsel for the applicant to be heard for an order in the following terms. So he's asking for an interdict. The UPND are running with a fake news that an order has been given to the undertaker not to move the body. That's a lie. There is no court order anywhere. There is a court process that the Attorney General has informed parties that he has sued Mama Esther Lungu, the widow. He has sued Betha Lungu, the daughter, that he has sued Honorable Tasila Lungu, the daughter, that he has sued Daliso Lungu, the son, that he has sued Chieso Lungu, the daughter, and he has sued Mr. Charles Piri, and that he has sued the family spokesperson, Honorable Makebe Zulu, and that he has sued Two Mountains, who are the undertaker for the, who are holding currently the remains of the late president. What is happening is there is a gathering underway at the Cathedral in Johannesburg, Christ the King Cathedral in Johannesburg, where the memorial service, the Requiem Mass, which is supposed to be celebrated by Archbishop Dr. Alec Banda, the Archbishop of the Archdiocese of Lusaka. These were some of the wishes. I think we made it very clear when we were explaining to you what the issues were. That number one, in the negotiation with government, that the celebrant must be Archbishop Alec Banda. These were personal wishes of President Edgar Lungu. Remember, the family had put up about 5 major conditions: that the body should go to Ndola, because there was a community of churches that were praying the entire 6 months that the president was in South Africa, that the body should also go to Petauke, where he comes from, and that the entire time the remains of the late president must lie at Chifuema, not at Maina Soko Medical Center, and that the main celebrant for his final farewell, a required mass or church service, should be done by Dr. Alec Banda, the Archbishop of Lusaka. These were wishes. So as you have seen the Archbishop arrive in Lusaka, he immediately went to the widow. Some people in the audience don't know that in that video, the person they keep on saying, the woman who's crying, is grieving them. That is a former First Lady, Mama Esther Lungu. When she saw the Archbishop arrive, I will play that video. Let me play that video. Mulilo Kabesha, the Attorney General, has sued that woman who is in deep grief, and has sued the people around her who are the children. And I stated yesterday that law practice in South Africa is extremely expensive. I stated that some of the tallest buildings in South Africa, especially in Sandton area, Rosebank and others, are owned either by insurance firms, by banks, or lawyers. Because in South Africa, law practice is an investment. So investors come together, then they employ lawyers. Unlike in Zambia, where you have lawyers opening practices, there's not much capital. In South Africa, it's the opposite. This is regarded as a huge investment. In fact, even the money that lawyers hold in custody they are allowed to make investment into the stock exchange and into buying properties. They are allowed. They are regarded, law practice is regarded as an investment. You actually need insurance cover to afford, to hire a lawyer. So many people have to hire to have insurance that when that time comes where you require a lawyer, you then the insurance pays for you. And in South Africa, therefore, they can advertise. Law firms are allowed to advertise. In Zambia, they are not allowed to advertise. My point is, the Attorney General and President Hakainde Hichilema have deep pockets. They're not even using their money. They are using state money. They can afford to hire these lawyers. It is very, very sad that the family under these circumstances are being forced to hire a lawyer. It's extremely expensive. It's not like in Zambia. Fidatulira tiyo uwakwensha obushikuwa mutashero bwacha mwe bantu isen munshitireko represent ngashamoneka tukamipela ku South Africa takwabe efyo. Because you are dealing, the law firms, like I said, are investment entities. You have to pay deposit. The Attorney General is using taxpayers' money. He can afford to do that. But that woman who's grieving has been sued by the Attorney General. This is how insensitive this government is. It is citing public interest. Who has primacy and more interest in the remains of the late president, other than the people that this government has sued? Who has? Sorry for callers, I can see the phone is still buzzing. Sometimes we have to make this point and then come back to you. So make your contribution. I'm just waiting for an update from the Cathedral. If they do a crossover, we'll see how we can sync this, and we'll leave the update from the Cathedral.
Amitapendwa ya vintu ifisume vyote kula kuibukisha kana depotimo wimbo wa temenu wa katongi abazunga batita katongi na kula kuibukisha kateka kaibuku na kapona neseko siove pamenso yangu maume maya iyaba maume iyaba maume kateka wabantu twakulira lelo twakulira shikakukonke milimo shove ale filamba yenaminta pengoshile eti kumemo kulondolole abale lilo mwingi
iseko wingi mwakwete iseso wingi mwakwete mwaya mwende wino tata wesu
katusi muchibotege wali bomba kale nomba mwatuja tulelilake
Thank you very much. Let's take some calls. Good evening. Good morning. Please tell us your name and where you are calling us from.
Ambassador.
Good evening.
Chagwa.
Mkwaiba Chama.
I'm calling you from Zambia.
Mkwaiba Chama.
Kalamba ifinale landana pakwamba in our prior interactions ukwebati alaba Chagwa tukabashika dibili. Because takwabo umuteko ubu each time pause. Not ubuteko, let me be very specific. Takwabo umuntu each time pause on a funeral of somebody else. aba ba Chagwa balelwila lelo okubathi yo omubiri ubwelo. This man was neglected. They didn't pay attention to him. Badi bapoka rights yonse, everything that a former president should have enjoyed. Badi bapoka, he left this country like an illegal immigrant. Therefore, bafumine baya mukuyifwayila abene omuti kweba tumwe wabo tantalile. And then after bafilwa fyashupe fintu bafwa, you insist you want the body. The question that I have, Bakalamba, is umubiri wanshi balefwaya, because umubiri balefwaya. Umuntu tabale mfwani nshadi nomweo. Umubiri wanshi bakoselela, umubiri ule yakwisa. Efibalera nda bachagwa kwe bat kwena muri no bulosh. We such things is to umuntu nshadi nomweo wali mukeni. Tawale mfwaya wamsonsomba through and through. And these people were given conditions by the family. Let's agree on these things. Papa Pele, if you're for the team Pitamo because it's that quite but now fish Wabakalam. What things? Okay for to a large. Did you movie Bapeka Yokobat for Bala Wela? Bafnia program we have son. Because they still want to impose over a family. The only thing that we need to do is not shike bakateka ukokwinabali. Let him rest in peace. Bringing his body, why? Because ichili ndina chimbika, and then now you are guilty and you're wondering ichili nditu ala chitana chwesh. Mwadimba. Mwaimbe chili ndia umuina wachili rotalaisa. Mwaisa amba national mourning umuina wachili rotalipo. Abala losha nibani. Mubidi muleshika ulikuisa mwapeka nyefindu mulefwaye umuntu wangu you get rid of that person mwamshikile chili nditalaisa. This man was not treated well. This man was ill-treated during his post-presidency. You insist you want his body. Why do you want to honor him in death when you couldn't honor him the way he was? Ichakulekelesha bakalamu bakwipa ensofu takubati yo uyunadilakana yona inakala umulwani ni insofu. The opposition needs to come together. The opposition needs to throw away their egos. To my idea, talk about they need to come together and form one party so that if it's bringing this man down, that's the only way that we're going to bring this man down. Stranger. Let's come together. Let's come together. Let's put our minds together. To form your to my egos. If truly what we want is to move this man off office, then we must know the importance of becoming one instead of the importance of egos. No left for Let the opposition choose one person who's going to be in charge, one person who every one of us is going to support so that this government is toppled. It's not going to happen by opposition, opposition to the 5 year in a pantuna, in a pantuna, in a pantuna campaign. No, let's come together. Let's find one person that is going to be eligible. And we're going to support this person. Otherwise, this is going to continue even beyond 2026. And that's something that we don't want.
Thank you, Vani. Thank you very much for your contributions.
How can you allow somebody who has murdered your son or your daughter and you are still mourning to come and attend the funeral and we need to speak at the funeral?
But how good your son
was. And you know about it, you say, wait a minute, what's happening? And I think I can just say the whole thing. I summed it up when I spoke to one guy. I said, because how can you, Ambassador, a Catholic,
must be an interesting one. I'm not sure if South Africa has ever done this before, but to ultimately help in the burial of a former president of an African country then, in which the family has decided not to repatriate the body back to Zambia. How exactly does South Africa deal with this from a diplomatic point of view, considering Minister Lamula's visit as well to Lusaka?
And that was precisely the purpose of Minister Lamula's visit to Lusaka, to firstly share the country's condolences on the passing of President Lungu, and also to say that South Africa does acknowledge the importance of a nation burying their former president. However, at this stage, we are bound legally to follow what the family requires, and we would then have to leave it there with the family's obligations or the family's wishes. But this also comes on the back of us having legal obligations to honor the family's wishes as they are resident in South Africa. So that then comes with some attendant rights as well in terms of some various legislations that would apply in these processes. So that is where we stand on the matter, but it should not be seen in any way as us not wishing to respect the Zambian government.
Caller, please tell us your name and where you're calling us from.
I'm calling from Lusaka.
And your name, sir?
Yes, I'm Lenga.
Okay, please make your contribution.
Okay. With me, why should they force the family to give them the body? And why should they force, first of all, to say the president should see that they should be involved? Why can't he assign another person? Because that program which was made in South Africa, it was clear. But they changed everything for only one person who should be there. So the question is, why should only one person build all these things and they allow the Attorney General to go and sue using the Zambian money over the things they felt themselves to make a decision? It's not too fair to Zambians, and it's not too fair to Edgar Lungu's family. Let them bury, then we'll resume the body when there's another government is there, because the differences are between them, the president and the family. Because who have you good have kosele? Baleke fe bashike, baleke fe bakonga no kubakonga.
Oh, thank you. I think you've made your point. Thank you very much. Please call to the number and participate. I think your view is very important. There are so many calls, but be patient. I'll answer whichever call I can. And for those that are calling, please be brief to allow other people to participate. The process in the Gauteng court should be underway. The Attorney General, through a lawyer they've hired in South Africa, is expected to appear before court and begin his pleading. We will be represented, the family will be represented, and if there's any outcome, we'll let you know. The Attorney General is pleading that the funeral and burial program should not proceed and that the family must surrender the remains of the late president and must be repatriated back home. That is the gist of the matter. For whatever it is, the family had not received service, what we call service at all, and but they've said the program will go ahead, but they will have representation at the Gauteng Pretoria High Court when this matter comes up. Thank you. Please make your call so that we can begin to wind up and follow what's happening at the cathedral. We want to see what is happening. Hello, good morning. Please tell us your name and where you're calling us from. Mkwai, Nabalandepo. Yes.
Tebena Zambia balefwayo umubiri abalefu umubiri niba hakainde umusango wako bati balefu kubonsya hakainde kubonsya bale president ikishimba mukokatirira kumagaya cyalo wanga fiye buli bwa by power wanga fiye cyakwa fiye ebo balete mingala to sonse cyabwanga dabali chindu tubale bishabwanga that's why bakoselera insoni lero balande chimayiro bapiribuka iyo tukwete ku nomas kabale ko kana nomas nomala kai ba tukwete so mwene apo balanda morning yapo mailo abachiyo in a period of morning icho balefu ayafye isi nganga shabo shabeba basende kuichimba kuli Lungu report yako cyo bareruisha kwe bachiyo byose kubare andesi yamfuti takwete isto yo before to support abalungu batushe mu kiboto ko kwinyoko bari napera.
Thank you.
Yesterday, June 18th, the people of Zambia were prepared to receive the remains of our former president, but were surprised by the family's reversal of their agreed course of action. At our request, the South African government prepared extensively with military honors mounted by the South African Defense Force, who did so in vain, as the former president's body was not availed by the family for repatriation to Zambia. For this unfortunate situation, we extend our sincere apologies to President Ramaphosa, the government, and the people of South Africa. Fellow citizens, our country cannot afford a state of indefinite mourning. We've done everything possible to engage the family of our departed 6th Republican president, and we've reached a point where a clear decision has to be made. Given these circumstances, I therefore wish to inform the nation that as of the end of today, the 19th of June 2025, this particular national mourning period is officially over. This will allow the country to begin to return to some normalcy.
Must be an interesting one. I'm not sure if South Africa has ever done this before, but to ultimately help in the burial of a former president of an African country then, in which the family has decided not to repatriate the body back to Zambia. How exactly does South Africa deal with this from a diplomatic point of view, considering Minister Lamula's visit as well to Lusaka?
And that was precisely the purpose of Minister Lamula's visit to Lusaka, to firstly share the country's condolences on the passing of President Lungu, and also to say that South Africa does acknowledge the importance of a nation burying their former president. However, at this stage, we are bound legally to follow what the family requires, and we would then have to leave it there with the family's obligations or the family's wishes. But this also comes on the back of us having legal obligations to honor the family's wishes as they are residents in South Africa. So that then comes.
Good morning. Please tell us your name and where you are calling us from.
Hello. Good morning. Nilevo. And Bamwamba, I don't want you to be a part of this message because I think this is one of the strongest messages you're going to hear from me. It's a message also to Makevi, and you're not going to be a part of it. Let me express my opinion of it. It is also to
Mkwai, you are free. Please express yourself, especially that you are owning the contribution. Please proceed.
After Fiapita Fion we are praying that if he beat there, Batushe Balungu Irero, Balungu rest. The one with the upper hand, Ibama Kevi. But if this party now can respect the wrongs that were done, and if there's anyone that we think adequate knowledge in agriculture, mining, housing, everything, at least the experience in every sector of the world, and at the moment you are barred from it, someone else has got the upper hand now. If they can respect that decision to say we've got someone who is, but this is for after the funeral, Mourners. And this is my opinion. People should come and say, this is the best chance we've got. Because if we let this situation drag and the fight come and drag on, for everyone. None of them know them. So after Twatu Shabalung, people should come and say, we need one person back. And because of the knowledge and everything, Katushike Tulose, if I get backlash on this contribution, so be it. But we always look at what is trying to be the best for the country. And that's why I didn't want you to be a part of it.
Thank you, my brother. Thank you.
The way you are doing things.
Yes, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm getting your last calls, and we should be crossing over to the cathedral. I can see the choir is beginning to warm up the seats, and they are singing. But call on this line your contributions. We have a court process happening in Pretoria where government intends to apply for a court interdict to stop, the funeral and burial of the late president. The family has not gotten anything, and they are proceeding with the program, and will inform you from the cathedral. Our leaders, Honorable Given Lubinda, Mama Inonge, Brian Mundubile, and all the MPs and others are at the cathedral. So we will speak from there. The leadership that is on the ground will speak from there. Please tell us your name and where you're calling us from.
Good morning, Ambassador. This is Gideon calling you from Solwezi.
Yes, Gideon, make your contributions.
Yes, Ambassador, what I want to say is Lungu into very in power by such that declare a national day of prayer and repentance. Okay? So when watch they declare a national day of prayer and repentance, why you PND into why in power? Why is social data? Why is not participate? Okay? So nobody to a PF of many in power 2021. Why you PND why shira? Wakateka. It's a national it's a national event, or it's a state event that happens every year. Okay? So our president Wakateka, Barachita delegate our vice president to go and officiate at that state function, or a national day of prayer. Why can't Wakateka Fafina? Because of why she power. We also want to make over Mutarena Wango, ever and which Tana can officiate. They in a state funeral to quit. Why can't Wakateka just stay away from the funeral and delegate Gavarium Fide in agreement to find a first? Gavari Rekere Wakateka. Varekera vice president to say, oh, in a Tavarium fire. Naraika Naratambira Kunganda. Lekeni mwebere wa vice president wa Mutarena Rumango kabiye ni muchite officiate. Natatufikire no kutufikire konze ngabari fafire bachita national day of prayer and fasting. Fafire batumako bana Rumango. Ngefo bachitire na papere na konso kungata tufikireko. I think a contribution and the ambassador.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you very much, my brother.
How can you allow somebody who has murdered your son or your daughter, and you are still mourning, to come and attend the funeral, and we went to speak at the funeral?
But how good your son
was, and you know about it, you say, wait a minute, what's happening? And I think I can just say the whole thing. I summed it up when I spoke to one guy. I said, because how can you, Ambassador, a Catholic?
The previous caller stated that the president has never attended the Day of National Prayer, Fasting and Reconciliation, and he always delegates the vice president to attend this. Why can't he do it? why can't he he should have accepted to delegate this matter, especially with concerns from the family.
Last send-off of their former statesman. What does this do in stripping a nation of having that opportunity of burying their former statesman?
Kato, I still say President Hakainde lost an opportunity to be the bigger man. He should have just stood aside.
Your Excellency, the country would want to know what really excites you know, when you were at the helm of this country for 27 years. I'm sure there must be one moment you can point out to.
No, I think that my happiness, Owen, is that up to this point in time, as I've said already, I've not come across a single man in politics who is today thinking of splitting Zambia. Apart from this is my head man in Zimbabwe, this is the southern province. He tried to do that, I think, but he didn't succeed. This what he's.
Okay, so we.
No, I think he will finish it that one.
Okay.
This is my southern province. What is he? The man is running his party.
Which one? Magande?
No. Oh, no.
He comes from Southern Province.
Southern Province, yes. This man, who is he?
Hakainde Hichilema.
Hakainde
Hichilema.
Hichilema.
Hakainde Hichilema.
Who running his
UPND?
UPND. Apart from that, there's no other leader I can fear to run this country. All these others who are running parties, I can't see any one of them trying to destroy one Zambia, one nation.
Wish you well.
I am cultured different. I don't want people confronting me like this, because where I grew up, we fear nothing. When you confront me, you're creating a problem there. But come and talk to me. Let's not talk.
And I shared just an 8-inch wall fence. We lived next door to each other. When he passed on early morning of that day, I was one of the few people to be at the house. Because I was the next door neighbor. I just walked in there. And one of the early conversations was, we need to inform the head of state, president at the time. It wasn't my duty, but it was my responsibility to say so to those who were close. And they did that as a family. And the president announced the date. In our case, my colleague was in the hands of the family, medication issues around. I knew he had passed on very early in the morning of the 5th of June. I decided to say nothing until we consulted the family. And I reached out to the Secretary of the Cabinet, my team around. I said, I cannot announce the death before the family is engaged. Family refused to engage us, subject for another conversation. While we were still struggling to do that, the family made a public announcement. And once they made a public announcement, that's the time I said, that's confirmation. It shouldn't have been like that, but it's like that. And the same day, the president issued a statement. I didn't take 48 hours, as people are saying. The record is there. Why am I saying this to you? I think it's important as citizens for you to be aware of this information, because I scan what's going on social media, a lot of stuff there. So that's a circumstance that we find ourselves in, but the point is that That's our desire, to bury him here. I know amongst yourselves there's probably polarization of views, but really, he was not an ordinary citizen. He was president. He's the only president who lived after leaving office and went to his Lord with his immunity intact. Those who lived before him after the presidency, they all had their immunities tampered with. President Kaunda, President Chiluba, President Banda. So this fellow talking took the decision that we must end this kind of stuff. So again, contrary to what is being said in the public media, facts are there staring at us. Whether we bend them or not, they are there. But let's honor him by burying him here. The issue of what issues surrounded, I think, is a discussion after the burial. We are trying very hard on your behalf.
Yeah, thank you very much. The Attorney General this morning was on Hot FM, and he was justifying why they have sued the widow, the former First Lady, Mama Esther Lungu, and her children on trying to get the body and return it to our country. This is part of the excerpt of what he said on Hot FM. Just listen to the Attorney General, Mulilo Kabesha, on Hot FM.
The Secretary to the Cabinet had been there too.
Oh, sorry. Let me just get it properly.
The Secretary to the Cabinet gone, and they couldn't agree. The Secretary to the Cabinet had been there too, and so in my wisdom, I thought, let the court also help us. It's not at all costs a thing. No, we just want to follow the procedures. If the court will disagree with us, fine. At least we have made efforts that our sixth president should be buried in the soil where he was born and where he served as a president for this nation. The president is not for the political party. Once you become president, you are not president for that political party. You're president for everybody else. And there are many Zambians. He couldn't have won an election by his party's members only, even those who belong to other parties.
Okay, Mr. Commissioner,
Mr.
Commissioner, I'd like to know, does the First Lady and the children have to be in court physically for them to respond to this?
Not necessarily physically. They have a lawyer. They have a lawyer who represent. It's an application. It's not a trial. It's an application. I've filed the notice of motion, and I've filed also an affidavit in support of why it's my considered view that the remains of our sixth president should come to be buried here.
All right, now, in the event that the state wins and the family boycotts the funeral in Osaka, how does the state hope to proceed if that ends up being the case?
Well, they need the counseling, I think. In our culture, we usually say that a person who is mourning, you don't have to pay attention to whether they are abusive, whether they are insulting. You don't pay attention to what they say. They can say anything. In the mood of mourning, people are emotional. They can say anything. They can do anything. There are those who even pick a rock, they want to hang themselves. There are those who want to throw themselves in the grave where the body will go. So they need counseling, and I think this is where we need the church, that we need to counsel.
But Mr. Commissioner, I'm directly asking how will you respond if the family decides to boycott? What are you going to do?
We'll cross the bridge when we are there. I think there will be boycott, other avenues will be used. But our thrust of mind is that President Lungu deserves to be buried in the country where he was president, because he belongs to all of us as Zambians. Politicians can have differences, but he was president and he needs to be buried here.
Right, Mr. Commissioner. Now,
he was president.
By going to court, the decision that you said by your own volition, are you admitting as the state that all negotiations and diplomatic efforts have failed?
No, the diplomatic talks, I'm sure they are still continuing, but we are looking at the time also it has taken. And if yes, the law and the procedure is that if you have failed to agree on any issue, then you go to court. The court decides. It's not a strange thing. And Zambians must be reminded that when President Kaunda died, the diplomatic talks, as you are referring to them, could not work. So there was a case that went to court by Kaweche, the son to the former president. And the court here ruled that once a person is a former president, it becomes a state arrangement, and that's how they buried at the embassy, because the court directed that it's beyond the family interest, public interest override the family interest. It's not a private arrangement, it's a national issue, and this is how we are proceeding. The matter is ex parte Kaweche Kaunda, 2021 HP 0768. So we have a law. There are those who say, is there a law? In Zambia, a law is by pieces of legislation, acts of parliament, by constitution, and by decision of the court. Once a court makes a decision, that becomes law until you legislate upon it, or until another judgment.
Thank you very much. Someone, had to request for, I wanted to understand what the gist of the Attorney General was, and as you heard, he appeared on Hot FM. Now, look at their thinking, that the family needs counseling. What kind of an insult is that? What kind of an insult that the family... When you are pushing the wishes of the late president, and you as a family, you have your own wishes, all of a sudden you need counseling, you don't know what you are doing, and is abused that way, dule losha, tabamuchiba kukanwa, and you've seen how he has extended it. That some may want to hang themselves, some may want to throw themselves in the grave, demeaning as usual. It's not about the respect of the late president. They have even no empathy. There's no empathetic approach to this process. They are highly mechanical. Now they are insulting them that the family needs counseling. So you have proceeded to sue them in a very expensive process. It's making it very easy that, the family will have a lawyer. What does it take to get a lawyer in South Africa? And especially at such a notice, because to date you have not served them. They had the process through ZNBC when you leaked the story to ZNBC. And you expect them at 8 hours to have a lawyer to argue this matter. So I take offense in the Attorney General. Immediately you listen to him, look how dismissive he is. He's saying they need counseling. And he says there's public interest. He's citing the case of Kaweche Kaunda. We had John Sangwa, he is State Counsel. He explained very extensively and he said we don't have a law. And we need a law like the one that Tanzania has. This precedent that they are trying to hang on by a bare thread. They are forgetting that, first of all, they denied Kaweche an injunction. And the state relied on Panji Kaunda, the older brother, who gave consent to the state. There were talks, and Panji gave consent as eldest of the siblings. Although Kaweche later proceeded with that matter, and it was determined later they had denied him an injunction. It's a very thin thread to hang on. So I thought I could play, before we begin to wind up, I could play the Attorney General and his remarks on Hot FM. As usual, just hot air, just malice, very disruptive process. No reason why they want to stop this process. And can we emphasize, we haven't said President Lungu will lie eternally in South Africa. I think the family has made it very clear. We'll put him to rest, but he will come to Zambia someday. When there is a decent government that will accord the late president in life and in death, will respect his wishes, a government that will honor. President Hakainde Hichilema had an opportunity. The family was decided the remains were coming to Zambia if they could talk and hammer out the differences. And he abrogated every agreement and proceeded to blame the family. He now unleashed his entire media army to scandalize the family, to scandalize the late president, to ridicule. Up to now, there is heightened ridicule, lies and propaganda that is engaged. And President Hakainde Hichilema has never whispered, even whispered that wane tulelosha, tools down. Nedo pali abantu panga ndabananga baisa, imbwa shirie shikari, tula shikomena. Ena has allowed the dogs to roam in the yard where there are children. We want to Akwalesa. We'll see you later in the day. You can join in the Cathedral process, and there'll be updates to be given by both our lawyers, Makebi Zulu, George Sanga, and the other senior lawyers from LAS that are in the, that have traveled to honor the late president. So if there's any development, just tune in. It might be on our other pages. They will. I want to take some rest, and I hope that I will, that you'll update me of whatever will come to pass. God bless you. We'll see you later in the day to come and review and take up of what will have happened in the day. And God bless and strengthen the family of President Edgar Lungu. I'll play with some of the videos close, and we'll see you later. Thank you, and thank you for listening.
Last send-off of their former statesman. What does this do in stripping a nation of having that opportunity of burying their former statesman?
Kato, I still say President Hakainde lost an opportunity to be the bigger man. He should have just stood aside.
How can you allow somebody who has murdered your son or your daughter, and you are still mourning, to come and attend the funeral and be made to speak at the funeral?
But how good your son
was. And you know about it, you say, wait a minute, what's happening? And I think I can just say the whole thing. I summed it up when I spoke to one guy. I said,
all right, let's bring you some breaking news now. Just before we go, the Attorney General in Zambia has now filed papers. He is seeking to ensure that the late former President Edgar Lungu is not buried in South Africa.
An application which will be heard by a Zambian court tomorrow. In that application, the Attorney General argues that even if the late former President Edgar Lungu did not want to be buried back home or in an official funeral led by the government, they believe, this is the Zambian government, that ultimately the desires or the wishes of the people would supersede his personal wishes or those of his family. So breaking news tonight, an application being brought forward in Zambia to prevent the burial of former President Edgar Lungu in South Africa.
And as you take some of the statement there, it says the Attorney General is requesting that no burial take place until all disputes regarding Dr. Lungu's final resting place are resolved. Specifically, whether he should be interred in Zambia with full military honors, customs and traditions as mandated by Zambian law and in keeping with public interest.
He was supposed to have been flown back to Zambia last week. You'll recall our crew was actually out at the airport when ultimately at the 11th hour the SABC News team was told that there would be no repatriation of the body back to Zambia for burial. So this is the latest to end the fallout between the Lungu family and the government of the country.
And of course, so we'll continue to keep a close eye on it.
Must be an interesting one. I'm not sure if South Africa has ever done this before, but to ultimately help in the burial of a former president of an African country then, in which the family has decided not to repatriate the body back to Zambia. How exactly does South Africa deal with this from a diplomatic point of view, considering Minister Lamula's visit as well to Lusaka?
And that was precisely the purpose of Minister Lamula's visit to Lusaka, to firstly share the country's condolences on the passing of President Lungu, and also to say that South Africa does acknowledge the importance of a nation burying their former president. However, at this stage, we are bound legally to follow what the family requires, and we would then have to leave it there with the family's obligations or the family's wishes. But this also comes on the back of us having legal obligations to honor the family's wishes as they are residents in South Africa. So that then comes with some attendant rights as well in terms of some various legislations that would apply in these processes. So that is where we stand on the matter. But it should not be seen in any way as us not wishing to respect the Zambian government's wishes or disrespectful to the Zambian.
Wimbo wa temenu wa katongi abazunga batita katongi nagula kwibukiza kateka kaibukubuna kapona neseko syove pameso yangwa maume baya iyaba maume iyaba maume kateka wa bantu iyaba maume wakulila lelo twakulila shikakukonke milimo shove ale filamba yena minta pengosile leti kumemo kulondolola abale lilo wingi
iseko wingi mwakwete iseso wingi mwakwete mwaya mwende wino tata wesu
katusi muchibotege wali bomba kale lomba mwatuja tulelilake mupangana chiba Divisible, wapagiri okuli. Okuchinja olusago kumoneko busaka. Mama, kuzituwa na basiyani. Chagwa katuse.
Para
Another left Yalamwa Mupelo Moano.